called the note-taking thingy and help him. What is it called? The hedge doc. Yes, hedge doc. So I managed to waste time until the top of the bottom of the hour. Welcome to the DMARC working group at IETF 123. I will remind everybody that the purpose of having respun this working group after Murray so hastily shut us down was to get this the resolution to what to do about the final document, the what has sometimes been called forensic reporting or failure reporting. So here we go. Note the note well, as we say. These are things you are committing to by participating in IETF process. Please be familiar with it and realize what it is that you're committing to. Note the note well, really well. Treat each other respectfully and such. It should go without saying. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So read through that and behave accordingly. Otherwise, you will get beaten about the head by somebody. Okay. Please, even if you are in the room, please get on the Meet Echo. You can do it through the on-site tool, either from the agenda or from that thing that's hanging from the microphone. It's also projected on the screen, except the slides usurp that, so you can't do it that way. But please get on it, and if you have something to say, put yourself in the queue in the Meet Echo. Okay, we've taken care of the first item of the agenda. You can't bash that bit because it's already been done, but if you would like to bash anything else, let me know. The only other item on the agenda is discussion of the failure reporting draft. The four main questions that I've put forth here, and there can be other sub-questions that come up as we discuss them, is are there objections to proceeding with, that is, finishing with that document as it is? The second question is it essentially ready? Are we basically finished and just have to do a few tweaks? If not, what are the open issues on it? And then once we sort those out, let's plan a schedule and get this thing finished so that we can re-close this working group for good. All right, that's all the slides I have. So now it's just, let's take each of those questions. That's all the agenda I have. Now let's take each of these questions. The first thing is, are there objections to proceeding? Seth, do you have a chair thing or a participant thing?
No, I'm going to participate on this question, but I'm also watching the chat and may chime in if there's conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to ask people to, there's probably a small enough group of participants here that we don't really need to use the chat for discussing this. Let's get the discussions on the microphones. Before I call on Seth to make his comment, yes, Seth?
Yeah, I'll go last for comment. I'll let other people speak up first, but just on the chair side, the charter that we have right now is scope to these, right? The decisions we're making aren't like, do we want to change the failure reporting spec materially, right? There are gaps. It's specifically around, is this a document we wish to adopt or not? There was a lot of conversation on the thread before the working group was closed down. And now we have a very, very tight mandate around, do we deliver this document or not? And that's really the core question here. And I want to make sure as we're talking today over the next hour, we're staying really within the bounds of the charter for these conversations.
Right, and that's where this slide is going to. The choices are to complete the document as it is currently drafted or to abandon it. Remember, though, that if we abandon it, we're not just done there. Then we have to go back and edit the base spec to remove the dependencies on this document because the base spec refers to this. So consider, if you would rather not do this, consider whether it's easier to do it anyway, given that. And remember that we can always, if we have some heartburn, we can always add text limiting the use or scope of it if that's where the consensus lands. So let's discuss this. Objections to proceeding. Should we complete it? Should we consider abandoning it? Murray.
So on the first question, complete it or abandon it. I've been following the arguments in the list, and they amount to it's barely used on one side. On the other side, but there are people who have used it. Some people see value in it. It's a little bit unfortunate that the people who do see value in it are not it's by proxy. Mike is on there very clearly saying it was useful in his time. I don't know who's using it today though. John is saying, and then John says virtually nobody uses it, but virtually now with my former AD type hat on, virtually nobody is not nobody. So I think we do need to finish this. And so I lean towards saying we need to complete it.
Okay.
That's my calculus.
Mike, I see your video on, are you putting your hand up?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, you're certainly welcome to put your hand up, but, and you're certainly welcome to leave your video on if you like. Okay, does anybody else have well, I'll throw my comment in, so let me put my hand up. Bang. I agree with Murray. I think that the people who say that there's bad stuff about using it without prior arrangements and privacy agreements and whatever, that speaks to adding text to the document, limiting the scope and use of this. But I think we should continue with this and finish it. I think we're close enough to done that we're better off doing it that way. And if we want to put warnings about its usage, then we should do that. Good. I wasted enough time to get John Levine in the queue. John.
Awesome. And then John, I'll chime in after you.
Okay.
Yeah, my personal feeling is that I don't think it's useful, but I also think that I would prefer to do whatever gets us done sooner. And even if it's not useful, it seems at worst harmless. And on the list, a couple of people said that they would finish the document. So I hope they are working on that now. Perhaps even have finished it.
Excellent. Seth.
Sorry. So I want to get really crisp on the use cases when people say they are using failure reports today, because I think we've actually solved the primary thing with DMARC BIS. But really the use case when people talk about forensic reporting is the first thing is, hey, I've got a larger organization and the reports go to the wrong place. So that I'm a university, I have a math department, they have got someone who sent the email, the report doesn't go to the math department, it goes to the IT center for the organization. And there's just no way to connect those dots. And I want to go look and figure out sort of from and to, so I can try and find the service owner so I can go get this thing properly authenticated. With the tree walk, reports now go to the right place, right? That was probably 95% of the use case. Forensic report was hunting down owners, and that was explicitly why we did the tree walk. So that case is now dramatically reduced from a value perspective. So some people use it, like that's where people use it. That isn't necessary anymore because we fixed the problem. The second reason people use forensic reports is they're really fascinated what's in that data, so they can go threat hunting. I want to see the thing that's breaking, to understand the URLs, to understand the payload of the malware. Like none of that's DMARC. Like the point of DMARC is to prevent spoofing of your domain and make sure you have a feedback loop to understand what's authenticating, what's not, and fix the authentication. Threat hunting, something else. And so I strongly disagree that we need to keep it around for a use that's not related to the value the spec is supposed to be providing. And there's other ways to get that forensic data if you want it. That's frankly of higher fidelity, and that doesn't create the privacy issues that forensic reporting does. And then to that other point, there was a concept like DMARC reporting, forensic reporting is relatively harmless. And on that, I have an incredibly strong disagreement, because there's a mountain of data about critical information that leaks, especially from businesses, due to forensic reporting. product launches have leaked, termination notices for employees have leaked. There is just a mountain of stuff that has gone to a processor or a third party by accident, because the primary thing that breaks and comes out in the forensic report are broken calendar invites that are sent to like a distribution list. And those things, like, you tend to have larger companies with sensitive information in a calendar invite that people have to pre-read, and that stuff gets lost into the ether. So it is harmful, not harmless. And there's also the, I forget the number, but there's an IETF BCP on privacy considerations. And I think forensic reports just blow that open. So I think it's harmful. I think it goes against IETF best practice. And I really think that forensic reports like we should put to bed. In that same vein, I'm okay if we keep the references to forensic reports and spin up a much more simplified document that this used to work this way. If you were to receive forensic reports from legacy systems, here is how you process them, but you should not use these given the risks, right? But I would slim it down and say, don't do this, but if you're going to get them, here's how. But I really think this is, it's not used, but where it is used, it does harm, and we should get away from this at this point with all the operational insights we have now.
So
And and sorry, the final note, actually, Barry, is simply almost no one sends forensic reports at this time.
I think we all, I think we all agree on that point, but almost no one, as Mary said, is not no one. Do you think that putting some warnings in this document would mitigate the last part of what you said?
No, look, there's a practicality, right? There's sort of the IETF perspective versus the real world, and this is where I think in the real world people say, I saw the spec, so I'm going to do it. We see lots of, we hear this all the time. Well, the DMARC spec says X. Like, that was an informational thing saying don't do it, and people read that as I should do it. I think the practicality of the spec is, from a spec perspective, yeah, if the spec is clear, I'm relatively happy. I just don't think that's how it plays out. I think people see it as a forensic reporting spec. They think that means forensic reporting is good and you should give it a try. And they miss all the warnings in the document because they're not really reading the document. They're just seeing the document exists and they proceed.
Well, how would that differ from the document you described at the end of your comment?
I think I'm thinking of something different. But I think a document isn't a good idea for all the reasons I mentioned. If we want to ship a document to keep the DMARC BIS references intact, not have to open up that document, do more work, maybe it's even the forensic reporting document is just a few paragraphs of text with a reference to the original DMARC doc with in the right section as just an informational reference if you want. Then the document's short and sweet, and you can point to the document and say the document's really clear. It's just a warning not to do it, with an informational reference, and it's not the text isn't even there. But I would slim it down.
Okay, Mike.
So I think that anybody who follows the list knows that I've been a strong advocate for completing the document. I think Seth's argument that people get it wrong and that's why we shouldn't do it is a very dangerous one. If we use that as the standard, there's a whole bunch of IETF documents that we'd have to throw out because so many people get it wrong, ranging from DNS to many other things. So the fact that there's many non-technical implementers who don't understand IETF standards and get it wrong is not a very good argument in my mind. Secondly, I know people who are using reports, and yes, most of those reports are not sent publicly for addressing abuse. And again, Seth was not there when DMARC was originally come up with. Originally, the antecedent of DMARC was a private club that consisted of some large receivers, a couple intermediaries, some large financials, and a greeting card company. And what we realized was that this was very useful. DMARC, the reporting that was being shared, there was not code. People would send me, receivers would send me as a sender slices of their logs as we developed this. And what we determined was this was so useful that it should be an open standard that anybody could participate. It should not be a private club of some large players who negotiated peer-to-peer contractual arrangements. So I just disagree on that second point with Seth. There is value. And with regard to his point that reporting was not a part of the original DMARC effort, reporting was critical both for people finding problems within their own systems, but also for dealing with the abuse that was being identified. It is an anti-abuse document. Trying to figure out where you have problems in your own systems and processes is a necessary step, but that was never the primary goal. It was necessary in order for DMARC to be adopted and work.
Sure. Mike, let me steer you in a direction because I'm looking for the answer to one question. What do you say to the response that it was necessary when DMARC was originally being developed, but that need has waned over time for various reasons?
I disagree. If you can start from an anti-abuse perspective, if you can start getting information within minutes of an attack or set of abuse happening, that is incredibly powerful instead of waiting for your CSRs in a call center to tell you, or emails to start coming in when somebody gets damaged by that activity. So I think it's incredibly powerful today. Yes, there are difficulties. Privacy is an issue, but it was regulatory things like GDPR, and GDPR negatively impacted the use of who is. It made it useless for many people. So again, I don't think we should just be rolling over. The document is basically complete. People on the list saw, like I wanted to start with the introduction, go through it, and focus on what I would call nits. Instead of trying to refocus and make large modifications to the document. Many of the things that were raised are more appropriately put in a BCP document rather than the core reporting document. Did you have anything else you wanted to tease out?
No, that's what I was looking for. Shall we move on to Murray, or do you have something more to say?
I've said most of what I wanted to say in the chat. I'll jump to the end.
All right. All right. I guess we're on to Todd.
I just wanted to, with regard to DMARC BIS and changing the failure reporting document to just a few paragraphs that say, hey, we used to do things like this, but we don't do it anymore. I don't think that is a minimal impact to DMARC BIS. I think a lot of the text in DMARC BIS, the reference failures or failure reporting would have to change if we went that route. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want to just minimize the impact on DMARC BIS, but if we make a substantial change to the failure reporting document.
So you're saying if we if in the failure reporting document we put restrictions or suggestions about limiting the use and scope of it, you think that would affect the base
Well,
document?
it was more, and perhaps I misunderstood what Seth was saying, but he was talking about changing the failure reporting document to just a few paragraphs that talk about the history of failure reporting or something along those lines. That is not that is not a no-op change for DMARC BIS at that point.
Right. No, I think that's off the table. That the charter does not take us in that direction. We either finish the document substantially as it is, or we abandon it and excise it from the base document completely. I think those are the choices. Seth.
Sorry, I just like Michael, I think you misstated a couple things I said, but the core issue is I do think forensic reporting was extremely valuable early on. It's how people got their feet in DMARC. It got things rolling. But I think the last decade of experience has been you do not need forensic reporting to do the job of DMARC. Like I remember, like if you go back to the original threads on the list, right? There was a concern that aggregate reporting wouldn't give you enough information to understand what was going on, understand why authentication was failing, and fix failing authentication, which is the core mechanism of DMARC. And the past decade has proven aggregate reporting is all you need, and the forensic reporting is a risk. I'm very sympathetic to the need for like, hey, I'd love to know about failures in real time, which you don't get from reporting today, but that can be addressed with the frequency of the reports you get. And I think it's dangerous to hold on to something that is such a privacy problem that's a very limited impact when we something else that has stood the test of time and operational practice and does the job very well. And I think we need to like lean into where DMARC's working and has broad adoption. Because that was the original scope of the DMARC charter, was to use operational experience to influence the spec. We did that in many places. And forensic reporting is a place where I do think the document does the right job of current state. But if we look forward and we look at how privacy regimes are shifting and how people are trying to adopt these technologies, I think the privacy risk actually continues to get worse. And I don't know why we would keep that door open, even with good security considerations. I really think this is a chance to just say, hey, we just need to clean this up because we have what works for the purpose of DMARC and the purpose of what we are trying to move to standards track. And so I feel strongly. I disagree with you. I deeply respect all the work you've had. I wanted to state that core disagreement clearly. And Mike, thanks for showing up to the conversation. Really, really appreciate having you here.
So, and I appreciate what you're saying, Seth, but let me see, could you live with the outcome that we were very clear about the privacy, security, whatever implications of this, and very clear about what limits you ought to put on the use of this in order to get us moving on? Could you live with that, even though that's not really where you'd like to see it go?
Yeah, to be very clear, I can absolutely live with failure reporting. I think it's a mistake for reasons of the reality of how this stuff gets implemented and ends up in the real world and the problems it creates for people that are unintended. I think from a pure spec perspective, it's been out there. There's to have it well documented, maybe more cleanly defined is useful. I just think we're better off putting it in the rear view than finishing the doc. But I can live with it. I just think it's a mistake too.
Okay. Al.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, I don't think it's too horrible to want to deprecate it as a way to warn other people away from it. And my concern there is that it's in the spec. People are going to think it's reasonable to use it. And I just want to make it so clear that for us, for a lot of reasons that other people have described, it is effectively no longer a best practice. And I don't think it's a question of why we should deprecate it or that we should deprecate it because 99% of other people already have. But I think we look at why they have done so. And I think that's sort of broad operational feedback that it's such a privacy nightmare that people run away from it. And it's that core fear that if it's in the spec, it's, hey, here's section 3 where this thing will slice your finger off, and then a little asterisk says, please don't slice your finger off. This seems to do more often leak data than give valuable feedback. That's my ultimate concern.
Okay, thanks, Al. Mike?
So I think we need to really focus on why have people been adopting DMARC and email authentication? Okay, DMARC, DKIM, SPF are really about anti-abuse. DMARC specifically, direct domain abuse. But the main driver of adoption has been deliverability, not anti-abuse. Large receivers have said, no auth, no entry. And that has driven a whole industry built around the deliverability aspects of these standards. Okay, so I think we need to be very conscious of this disparity between what it is that these are supposed to do and why people are adopting them. Some people, the minority, adopt DMARC and the underlying protocols because their hair's on fire, they're being attacked. What can I do? And I have had people call me about these sorts of situations. So we need to be very conscious when we say, here's where we're at today. We also need to look at why we are at where we are at today. And I get the 800-pound gorillas are going to drive where things go, but this is a standards body. And we should look at it from, are these things useful? Should it be a private club or a public standard? You know, it's those sorts of things.
So do you think the forensic reporting, failure reporting directly relates to deliverability?
I don't think that anything surrounding DMARC, DKIM, or SPF is truly about deliverability, but that's what's driven adoption, because some large players have said, you must do this. Originally, DMARC was never intended for anything other than transactional mail. And it protected both the domains, but also users who received those fake emails. If anyone remembers back in 2007, the Stormworm, when the Stormworm switched from using the subject of that big storm in Europe to doing fake greeting card notifications, it was sending 10 times as many, and I'm doing air quotes, notifications is the entire greeting card industry combined. Those were the sorts of things that drove it initially. So, we have to decide, are we doing a technical standard about fighting abuse, or are we simply aiding in a standard that is driven by folks wanting to be able to get their mail in the door to a handful of large players? What are we about?
Okay. I'll just point out we're halfway through, and we're on the first question still. I'm going to try to let this wrap up. So I'm going to close the queue after Murray, if I can figure out how to do that from this interface. But we'll just note that it's closed after Murray in case I can't figure it out. Mauro.
Mauro De Gennaro. I maintain a mail server called Stalwart, and also a library for the Rust ecosystem that does sender authentication, DMARC, and all that. And I can share the experience from the community using the mail server, Stalwart, which implements failure reporting for DKIM and SPF, as well, obviously, as well as DMARC aggregate reporting, right? And what users say that they get, for example, the failure reports for what this applies to the DMARC, obviously. They get the failure reports for SPF and DKIM, and they don't know what to do. Yes, I'm getting, and this, they're attacking my domain, and they don't know how to react. So what I'm saying is that most people don't find those failure reports useful. That is the comments I've been hearing. But on the other side, I think they're useful because they allow servers that are able to process these reports immediately and trigger alerts to, because if you're looking at the logs manually, of course, every once in a while it is not useful. But if you have a system in place that can automatically parse these reports and send alerts, I think the community might find that interesting to use. That's it basically.
Okay, thank you, Seth.
So
Try to be terse. Let's.
I will try to be terse. I think one of the things Mike said was that we've got a couple of major mailboxes sort of starting to require DMARC, and I think it's actually at this point a broad international consensus of the sort of hosted email systems that hosted inboxes that they're going to require DMARC, and 100% of those mailboxes have also all said we will never send forensic reports because we think they're a privacy disaster. So if we're in a world where an enormous number of new people are going to come and try and implement DMARC, right? Forensic reporting is just going to confuse the shit out of them. It's not actionable for them. It's not what they need. And the people who are telling them they need to do DMARC don't provide it. And so I think there's, from a practical perspective, again, this is going to be a morass and a big issue. But I think from a spec perspective, that may not matter at all. But I do think the need to do DMARC and need to do it cleanly and with clarity is more important than ever. And I think we've got to a really clear place in BIS. And I think this adds disclarity and confusion for everyone but the extreme fringe of power users. And even then, I don't think this really meets the need anymore.
Okay, thanks. Murray?
I'll just repeat something I said in the chat. I'm a little worried about dragging the deliverability versus anti-abuse discussion in. I think the document doesn't change no matter where you fall on that question, so it's a red herring. We should just focus on what is the protocol supposed to do, what are the privacy concerns, because that's the thing I'm hearing the most about, and just ship it.
Okay. All right, so that, I think, ends this part of the discussion for now, but not for good. My inclination at this point is to proceed with the document for now, get some text in there that really strongly warns about the privacy issues. That's not just something in security considerations, but lead with that. Have a section at the beginning of the document that talks about the issues with it and suggests limitations of the use and scope of it so that it's not hidden somewhere. And let's see what it looks like when we do that. And let's see if we can live with that. And if we need to come back to this and say, no, it's still too dangerous to put out there, we'll have further discussion. So let me just reopen the queue and ask if anybody strongly objects to taking that path. And I don't see anybody jumping in very quickly, so.
I object, but can live with it, and we'll be in the rough just fine.
Okay, got it. All right, so assuming that we're going in that direction, how close are we to being ready, modulo that text that I just talked about that clearly isn't written yet? are we substantially ready with this, with the rest of the document? Murray.
Can I just ask Mike in one sentence or less, what he said he was planning to contribute some stuff to it. He seemed interested in sort of moving it along.
Okay.
What has he got that's outstanding, just to remind us all?
Yes. So Mike, what open issues do you see in it that need to be put in before it's finished?
So I've reviewed the document multiple times, and I don't see that there are any large substantive issues. And the approach that I tried to start on the mailing list was, let's just go through it section by section and look at what I call nits, the small issues, wordsmithing, things like that. I don't think there are any major changes needed to the document. I've already said that, like any other technical standard that IETF puts out, there's a lot of non-technical implementers who will never read the actual document, will rely on whatever buttons or dials that are provided to them by a service provider. So I like the approach. We just go through it section by section and focus on what are the nits. If we allowed 1 week per section for discussion, we get through this in plenty of time to submit it to the IESG by the deadline.
Okay. Murray, do you have more to say?
Yeah. So the section by section thing, the question I came up to ask was, Seth, how far away do you think the current security and privacy text is from where you'd like to see it?
While he's finding his mute button,
yeah.
I would say we're pretty far away from what I would like to see.
Okay.
So,
Then.
Well, go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have to go back and reread them, but I remember it being really, really weak and frankly just in the very wrong place of the document. But I don't think we're talking about a big thing. I think we're talking about a section of 3 or 4 paragraphs that pretty concise and clear, and I think that can be written in a matter of days and beat up on the list.
That's my thought as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Other comments on this? So what I'm hearing is it is essentially done except for the text that I just talked about. Does anyone have a different opinion than that?
I think there's one question I have for the room is I do feel like there was a large number of people involved in the sort of the 3 options discussion before the working group closed who haven't really shown up to the discussion about forensic reports once we got rechartered.
Yes.
And I'd want to make sure we engage that group as we talk through updated text.
Yes. So, Seth, can I pass that to you to check who those are and try to get out your lariat?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mike.
So I sort of want to echo what Seth just said. There hasn't been a lot of activity on the list since the recharter. I see we have 39 people on Meet Echo. And so I would argue that the more eyes and participants, the better the outcome that we'll have in wordsmithing and getting it right. So get more participation. And I also view the comments and participations on the mailing list is important when it gets reviewed and goes to the IESG, that people see that we really did look at it.
Yep. Okay, I think we can all agree on that one. All right, so I think we've covered the, why did this not, here we go. I think we covered this question too in that last bit of discussion. And Trent says in the chat, I look around and realize I'm in the wrong room. I don't think, Trent, I think you're one of the ones we were hoping to rope back in and get more comments from on this. So.
Yeah. Actually, on that note, because Trent popped his head in, Trent, do you have anything you'd like to add? You've been here the whole way through, and you play with a lot of forensic reports in your day job, so it would be useful to have your vantage point.
Yeah, let's hear from you now. Trent, yo.
I'm not turning my camera on because I'm in my jammies.
That's fine.
So we used forensic reporting at PayPal. You know, we could suck those things in and use them to the best of our ability as they kind of sporadically showed up. So when they were there, they were incredibly useful, even from a small subset. We could extrapolate from there. So they were useful. That being said, as soon as the privacy concerns started to rear their ugly head, and it became clear how they could be misused, we understood the rationale for kind of backing away from them. That being said, if they showed up, they'd be useful. If they're not there, we've all, I think, from the industry come around, or at least, you know, from that context, and then from Proofpoint as well. Just the numbers of our data that we get in other sources have, we found ways to figure out what we need to figure out without forensic reporting. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation that is unfolded on the in the call today is exactly where it should be. In fact, I kind of follow finish the document along the lines of what Seth suggested and leave it there.
Okay. All right. So everything I've heard leads me to think we can finish this by 124, which is, let's say we are in July, we have August, September, October, we have 3 months. And people are saying we ought to finish it in 3 weeks. So this sounds plausible because you usually have to multiply people's estimates by a few factors. Anybody have any reasons to bring up why we would not be able to get this finished in the working group by the next IETF meeting and not have an in-person session in Montreal? Does anybody want to make us have a session in Montreal so they can go to Montreal? John just shook his head. He hates Montreal.
C'est pas techniquement vrai. I hope we can finish it by Montreal, but I'm worried that we have a long history of dropping the ball and people just not writing stuff.
Well,
so we definitely need specific deadlines so we can beat people when they don't meet them.
That's right. That's what I'm looking for, and that's why I'm hoping that we can put glue on the ball so people don't drop it. Seth.
Oh, as you say, and to that note, I'm happy to take the pen on sort of the privacy concerns up top unless someone else wants it. I know I feel strongly, so I might be the wrong person.
Well,
or I can do a draft.
I was going to suggest that Murray take that if he's willing to, because I think he's got enough of an opinion, but is not as dug in, and then pass it to Seth to, hey, what do you think of this?
And this is all my fault. So,
and this is all Murray's fault.
I will. And I will reach out to Trent since he's silently sitting in the corner and has some history about the privacy concerns that existed at PayPal. I think that would be good to tease that out.
Okay, so Murray and Trent will do this, and of course work with Ale because he's the primary editor on the document. Mike.
So with regard to the pace and tempo of getting it done, yes, there's the issue of people not writing and getting things done, but also given the time frame, you know, I own a couple of businesses and on a farm and all that. And so there's demands. I can't focus all my time on this document. And I think others have similar issues. So we do need to push it forward, but we need to consider that in any given week or time frame, people have other demands on their time. But I did have a question for Trent. And yeah, he has a long history. I have a long history. Trent, if failure reporting were to make a comeback, and if privacy considerations were addressed, do you think that publicly available forensic or failure reports would be useful?
Yes, they would if they existed in a privacy respecting manner.
And for
But
anyone who wasn't
in a way
looking at
that
the
helps.
screen, I'll note that Trent covered up his pajamas.
That's
But-
what zip
but
hoodies
Trent-
are for.
Right? But Trent,
Now I'm a hacker.
yeah, but that's hilarious. But Trent, and your knight is in the shadows. But yes, I don't think anyone disagrees that the forensic information is useful for threat hunting. But is it more useful than aggregate reports for doing authentication and understanding that, like, the core mechanism of DMARC? Like, that's the question for the working group.
Did you ask me a specific question, or are you just saying? Are you making a statement
Yeah.
that that's what the group is
No,
doing?
no, I'm asking you the question. Do you think it would add additional value to help do the job of DMARC beyond what's now possible with aggregate reports?
See, this is the difficult answer, right? If they were available, we would take advantage of that additional signal. Absolutely. We have proxies for what forensic reporting offers, but we work at such a large scale. Again, large scale companies have access to data that smaller size companies don't. So I hate to say, well, as a big company with a lot of data, we don't need them. Throw them away. I think we would use them. Sure. I mean, it'd be an additional signal. And then a smaller company that doesn't have access to the inferencing that we can do to overcome the lack of them, it would probably be beneficial. But again, I'll fall back to only if they could be done in a privacy respecting manner, which again, I think is the hard problem.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Seth?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Great. And to Mike's comment, yes, I always am aware that people are busy and have a lot of things going on. The fact that we have a schedule means we have something to strive for. It doesn't mean that we're going to come and slaughter your firstborn if you don't make your dates. So it's all good. Okay. I think we have a path forward at this point. So we have Murray and Trent working on warning text and privacy text and whatever and that sort of thing. We don't have any other open issues to push for. So Murray and Trent, when do you think you can have a draft of text?
Let me consult with my new partner. We can probably take a run at this and have something in a couple of weeks. Trent, is that right? Like maybe mid-August?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It shouldn't be hard to pull together. It's just like just need to get the time together.
Okay. I would point out too that we're talking, I think Mike's idea was a week per section. There are 8 sections of prose in the document that I just looked at, and there are about 14 weeks between now and the next IETF meeting. Does that leave us enough of a buffer in case we need more time or less time, or a working group last call or whatnot?
So I'm going to just jump in
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
say, I was just using the week per section as a way of kind of indicating a tempo. If we finish a section in a day, we can move on to the next section.
Sure.
You know, but I think we need to allow for discussion, thoughts, input, and to get it documented by the discussion, so that it's not just like we did a hand wave and yeah, everything's good.
I'm fine with whatever
Well-
the chairs choose, obviously, but I would recommend a more free-for-all approach. Open issues about whatever you find, whatever you think we need to say differently, and we'll just tackle them as we go.
And sorry, and quick question. And I think either Barry as co-chair, Andy as AD, but right, this document's already been up, had been looked at by the DMARC working group, and the charter now is really about making a decision and cleaning up. I don't think we're talking about going top to bottom and making changes, right? So if this is just a nit hunt and a clarification of the appropriate framing up top on security, this does not feel like a big deal. This feels like we have a doc that was baked already, and we're just choosing to go with it and fixing any major issue, not going section by section to address each section bit by bit.
Whatever plan we come up with has to account for the fact that this community tends to be really slow, and I just don't want to run into another deadline.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've got a date of mid-August for privacy warning, limitation text, whatever. Are we ready to wrap up the working group session? Because I believe that's the last. That is indeed the last slide. Last call for comments. All right, thank you everybody for the discussion. John, you have.
Please take a look at the notes that I wrote and fix all, and particularly if you disagree with my summary of what you said, feel free to fix it.
Thank you, everyone. And Mike, thank you for going back and forth with me. I know we disagree, but I appreciate the conversation.
Hey, Seth, I'm going to try and make it to Montreal. If I do and we can find a place, I'll bring you a steak from one of my cattle.
Whoa.
I will never say no to that, but you might have other takers who are going to try and steal it from me.
But I before we close, I have one ask for the chairs.
What's that?
And that is, as we move forward on the list, please be aggressive when people get off topic or
Yes.
try and expand scope. Please shut them down quick so we don't waste time on the back and forth on that stuff.
Thanks for the reminder. Yes, I will make an effort to do that.
Yeah, completely agree. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. That was successful.
What's that? Shut them down? But it didn't work.
Now I think I need to see.
There were some. Oh, you see this as a continuum.
November 6th, Thursday.